It's totally imperative that we turn around this paradigm and we start having respect for this plant so that the plant can go out and educate the masses so that this world can be a better place.
I just also like to share gratitude with the first people of this land, this next nation, and welcome all of you, and welcome Josh and Kelly. So come on out.
Hello everyone, it's really nice to be here. We have a lot of respect and love for everyone that's here, and especially the Kootenays and the life here we feel was a really big, important part of our life to be a part of this culture and a part of this community, and it's really taught us a lot. It really helped us form everything that we've done in this, is coming from the essence of this type of life and this representation of this community.
So we're Dragonfly Earth Medicine, and I guess we just wanted to talk to you all a little bit about what we've been doing in the cannabis industry as of today. We've been working a lot in the cannabis industry pretty much up and down the West Coast, also in Maine. We've been working in Colorado. We've been doing consulting for really large indoor operations as well as outdoor operations, light dep, full season. We have gone into really large facilities that were utilizing synthetics, and we've turned them over to complete living soil systems that are working really well. We also are the creators of the Pure certification. The Pure certification is a certification that we created for cannabis because we felt like the ODA and the USDA and Organic Standards for Canada were not representative of the product that we were growing, nor representative of our farm at all. So we decided, pretty much out of being angry with the certifications of today, that we were going to create our own certification. It's a free certification, and we made it free because it's not something that you can buy into. It's community run, it's community monitored, and it's community inspired. So I really recommend that you all check out DEM Pure Farms. We have over 70 farms now involved. Also extract companies, that also means that extract companies that are Pure certified can only buy Pure certified flowers. So it's creating this beautiful sacred internal commerce for like-minded regenerative cannabis farmers.
And that's really important to us because our environment is really toxed out, and our bodies are toxed out, and we know that and cannabis is an amazing thing because it remediates the land just in the act of growing, and then it remediates our minds and our bodies in the act of consuming it. So it just makes all the sense in the world to create the most sacred spiritual garden possible, especially in the face of full corporate weed coming at us and full quantity coming at us, and just the craziness is coming at us. So we really wanted to take the natural steps to just create the quality that we were really looking for. So we essentially are going to start by talking about our bodies and how they're so similar to soil, and how the microflora that's found in our guts is very similar to the microflora and almost exactly the same as what's in the soils.
So lactic acid bacteria culture with everybody is really familiar with. It's our sauerkraut, it's our probiotics, the bifidus, the lactic acid active, you know what I mean? Stays in our gut for about 72 hours. And then you have to re-inoculate it. And it's really only going into the upper digestive tract. Now, soil microbiology can inoculate a body forever and cross the blood-brain barrier. And what we realize and what we're studying over and over again is when you have IBS or colitis or people with a lot of intestinal problems, we're looking at also cancers, and we're realizing that the lack of soil microbiology that's found in the soil is also lacking in the blood system and in the digestive tract. So we just wanted to really bring it around full circle that we really can't be treating our bodies any different than our soil. It's absolutely imperative that we have the right positive, beneficial microbiology in our bodies to be able to fight off any pathogens, and it's the same way in your gardens. So we're going to talk tonight a lot about microbiology and how we really need to up microbiology, and we really need to look differently at the way that we're cultivating cannabis right now. We need to start feeding the soil, not the plant. when you're feeding the plant, you're completely bypassing a whole natural process that the plant has. It exudates sugars and carbohydrates that then microorganisms are drawn to those sugars and carbohydrates. If you bypass that, then it's only uptaking it right into the plant. And we know now that many different cannabinoids are only made by microbiology. So all of these great, you can probably talk about that.
Oh, I mean, we're finding that labs are limited, as amazing as they are, and as much as we need them, they're really limiting because there's over 100 cannabinoids in the cannabis plant, but they're studying like 5 or 7 or 10, depending on who you're talking about, and it's like the holy grail of all cannabinoids. Like we have to have the THC and stuff, but through microbiology and more advanced testing, we're finding brand new cannabinoids and brand new pathways and brand new things. So it's almost like we just need to continue to stay with nature and stay with our diversity and just wait for science to catch up, because it's not real until they've made some kind of, study and some peer group thing, and then it can become real.
It's incredibly important that we're educating ourselves and also educating the consumers. We can't educate the consumers in the cannabis market unless we're educating ourselves and we're educating our own community. So unfortunately, this cannabis market is based off of quantity. Everything that we've been growing is really based off of quantity. This community went from maybe a more quality market to a lot of changes within the black market of what was for sale. We were doing tops and quads and all of these different things. So our growing styles started to mimic that of what the buyers were buying. And we are up here encouraging you all that that is not the future of the cannabis market. It is not going to be the high THC flowers and the super high quantities. You're not going to be able to grow as much as the pharmaceutical companies. You will not, it's so important that you need to bring down your cost tremendously. We really need to bring down our cost, and our quality needs to go up. So we need to be cultivating quality to be able to stay in this market, because I think that it's incredibly imperative that small farmers have a voice in this industry.
And we can also use our farms to, change the climate. Regenerative cannabis is a really big subject right now. What is it? What is regenerative cannabis? Can you have an indoor regenerative cannabis farm? Some people say absolutely not. Absolutely, if there's a light involved, you're not having, it's not regenerative, or even greenhouses, and that's more of an environment, certain areas. So we really need to, think about, what it is and the energy that's putting into it. And one of the largest, contributors to climate change in this moment is farming. It's when people talk about flushing, or they have the right kind of soil that they can flush out properly and get the perfect ash, where is it being flushed to? It's being flushed into the water systems that we really love. These are the waters that we live off of, and it's what we thrive off of. And nitrates and phosphates, nitrates are easy to go away, but phosphates are not easy to go away. And we're lucky we don't live in a high agriculture area, because if we did, it'd be a lot bigger deal. And that's what happens in the like Mississippi, and that's why there's dead zones in the ocean, because of too much phosphates. So it's really important to us as we move forward. We work with living soils. We need to know what living soils are, and living soils are not just a recipe. It's not just by a certain person or a certain thing, or a certain soil is not living. To us, living soils is when it's alive, and it's alive when it's living, and it's living when it's eating something, and it can't be eating something if there's not organic matter in there, and peat is not enough organic matter, and worm castings are limited. So we really are looking forward, more advanced techniques into how we can mimic nature, bringing it inside, and we're doing that through more carbon and carbon sequestration, even inside of our soils.
So this is a perfect picture right here, and it really looks like a monocrop garden. This is Green Life Productions in Nevada. They have the highest regulations on cannabis. Their microbiology and tests that they have to endure are beyond anything that you all could even understand. So we're really trying to work within the system, and it's coming for us now. So all of these final products are going to have to be tested in the white market, and we really are encouraging people to get involved with the white market. We've got to set up our branding. We've got to set up a farm. We're no longer just cannabis farmers that can sell a bag of weed. We are not there anymore. We have to have a product. You have to have a name. You have to have a story behind how you created this. You have to have a story for the consumer. So underneath that canopy that you all saw that looked like monoculturing is not. They are doing tremendous amount of biodiversity in their soil. So this is like a 2.5 foot soil system, and they are utilizing, they came in with like a soil that we worked with them on to begin with, and then now adding cover crops continuously, adding a ton of microbiology, adding a lot of different mycology as well. And they're finding with more and more time, they're on their 10th cycle now, and they are rocking it with 0 problems because of their biodiversity in their soils.
Yeah, this is their 10th cycle bed right here at the moment, and they have buckwheat growing. Since they started using our products, they have nettles growing up in the middle of their in their beds. These are 4x8 beds. They're grassroots pot beds. The PVC is part of it. It would be nice to not use PVC because that's kind of a product that's not very environmentally sound to use. If we can use something that's more sustainable, that would be really wonderful. But in this situation, it works really, really wonderful. And mushrooms are a sign of fungal development. Obviously, they're fungi mushrooms, but they're eating organic matter, eating wood. And so when you have mushrooms popping up in your soil, it's a good thing. And the whole adage of you can't bring stuff outdoors, you can't bring your soil outdoors and bringing it indoors is absolutely not true. It's fine to have bugs in there, and we've made plenty of soils right now, and people in this community have made soils. They bring this store-bought worm castings, and now there's fungus gnats or just gnats flying all over the place. So the reality is there isn't clean inputs, and just because you got it from the store absolutely doesn't mean it's clean. It's probably dirty. And that's why we're really, really, big on people growing their own nutrients. Even if you have an indoor garden, it's possible to grow outdoors here. And in this environment, it's really, really wonderful. And you can take from the environment and use your weed racks to dry off things and utilize it during the winter in your indoor grows.
Mm-hmm. And when we continually go into, usually people don't call us in until they have some pretty major problems. So when we go in there, the first thing that we do is start testing their soils. This is an example of, when we first came into this garden, they were needing a tremendous amount of help. We started to look into their soils, and we were finding, which is across the board with most cannabis growers, is that in living soils that the bacteria counts are really quite high. And bacteria is great to have, but bacteria is really only going to break down a certain amount of nutrients that the plant can then uptake. We have to have fungi. Fungi has been completely depleted in these soils, even though you might be adding endomycorrhiza, that is a fungi, but there's all these other different species of fungi that are very aggressive eaters. So people that are having either root rot, they're having root aphids, people are having powdery mildew, which is really another leaf fungi, which could be 36 different varieties of some type of a leaf fungi. So this idea of just it's PM, it's not just PM. There could be anything going on in your garden, and it's really hard to name it and mark it just as that. And all of those spores are created inside of the soil. So if you don't have those very aggressive fungi colonization within your soil, then you're not going to be able to get rid of those problems at all. We've been looking at these soils. We're also seeing a 0% of available hydrogen and oxygen. And the way to be able to get oxygen and hydrogen in your soil is through the breakdown of fungi microbiology and building up the bulk of your soil. So we all understand this because we grow beautiful gardens here in the Kootenays outside. Our veggie gardens are amazing, and what do we put into our veggie gardens? Over and over again, we're always piling compost. We're always making compost. That's where health and welfare come in all soils. And it doesn't matter whether the plant is inside or whether the plant is outside. It still has the same uptake metabolism.
And this grow room is 100. Go ahead.
Are you answering questions during your talk or after?
What do you want? We can answer a question really quick.
I want to know if this company that you're showing us, do they harvest the understory, or is it just for the soil?
Do they harvest the what?
Yeah, I can answer that.
They are on a completely rotating, so I'll repeat the question, was that when they're done with the cycle, she's wanting to know, do they get rid of their cover crop? Their cover crop
What
is...
their business model? Do they sell it?
No, they do not sell it. It's utilized in the soil. So the cover crop is not to be taken out. The cover crop is there to be continuously feeding the bacteria and the fungi. We have people on programs that are utilizing 3 to 4 different cover crops during their flowering cycle alone, because not only do cover crops give you aeration in the soil, they feed your microbiology, but they also create a wonderful environment with the plant to live within, and also can save on water. So there's so many different reasons to utilize cover crop. But the way that we do it is just pull out the cover crop, lay it down, and the day that it's laid down is the day that you start a new cover crop. And each cover crop can have different nutrients. Poppy has an incredible amount of phosphorus. If you want to start growing poppies in your gardens, then you can use it as a cover crop inside of your cannabis farms. And that's great in the last 3 weeks of flowering, because then the plant is getting 100% available phosphorus just from those seeds that you brought into the garden. So cover crops do give available nitrogen, but a lot of other minerals in their growth process.
And this is 100% LED as well, the lighting in there, and they do really, really well. A lot of farms come and go. They're expanding. They're the only organic grow in all of Nevada, and they're just really amazing people. And so they went and made this project. I'm gonna make the most efficient, amazing garden with living soils no matter what. Their end goal was not, I have to get this much of a harvest, how do I make my living soils make it to that? They were just, how do I do this the best way to create the soil? Question?
Is that the Fluid Spider X, or which LED?
This is a Lumitex.
Lumitex.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah.
So they're
exact same ones.
Similar.
The exact same ones that are coming from them. So,
Okay.
The next thing that we'll move into is living how we make our soils, and we're making our soils for our greenhouses, and we've chosen to continue to cultivate outdoors, and we have a passion about it. We love the sun. We think that it's amazing. We've done really well growing outdoors, and a lot of people growing outdoor weed where it's in the mountains, that's a totally different thing. We did well with that too, but light deprivation is really where it's at for us right now. And we have 0 electricity in our particular greenhouses. We choose to do 1 to 2 cycles in our summer, 1, 2, done, and we have an amazing crop, and so we're building it all throughout the year.
And you can't really have a conversation about living soils unless you talk about soil first. So we're going to go into soil, and we feel like mixing your soil, this sort of idea of mixing a soil with all nutrients that don't have any microbiology in it really doesn't make sense. So then you're wondering, where's your microbiology coming from? Is it coming from the air? Well, then you sort of have this incredible petri dish of any possibilities, because there's a differentiation between clean. We really need to talk about what clean is. Allopathic, hospital, sterilized, clean. 100,000 people in the United States alone died of MRSA that they contracted from the hospital last year in 2017. It's not a clean place. Sterilization that hospitals give us is not clean. What is clean is microbiology and beneficials. So always thinking about in your soil, how many beneficials can you get? How many beneficials can you go and collect in the woods? It's called an indigenous microorganism, IMOs. IMOs are really important conversations when we're talking about making soil. So we have this beautiful plethora of all these great small environments within these woods and these areas. We really encourage people that when you go and you're making your soils, that you're grabbing you're grabbing microorganisms from these zones and areas and then adding it into your soil, because you're immediately adding a beneficial microbiology. And that's really important. I'll pass it over to you. I've got a lot to say.
There's a person who harvests cows in the area, any kind of head or any kind of like bone parts, or we could put them in our wood stove for the winter. We'll create bones, bone meal. We have products. We have amazing products. They're beautiful. They're from herbs and everything. But really, we encourage people to move beyond products. And it's really that it's almost like products are the problem, because they don't like keep us intuitive and keep us moving forward. So we're just continuing to utilize the nature.
Wait, talk about that.
soils.
That was just collecting.
So, this is endomycorrhizal globules and nodules that are happening on the roots, and if we build a lot of compost piles and different piles like wood chip piles, leaf piles, if we just continue to pile, even if we have an indoor operation, we have some kind of warehouse, if someone has a yard or someone has a thing where we can pile up material, where we continue to break down over the year, and as we see it makes sense, we can start utilizing it into our soils in between. After you go through a full cycle, it makes sense to test your soils, know where you're at with your soils, so you can properly re-amend the top of the soil when you do your next phase. But you can also take, parts of in nature, little pieces like seeds. It's like taking a seed from the local environment, putting it in your soil. Even if it's a pot, you can still seed your pot with nature. And when you go to make your clones, we like to make our clones or start seeds in the seed blockers, and we like to have dirt underneath the seed blockers because there's a little bit of roots can go into the dirt, and then you can get the right kind of water in there, and then we make our own dirt now for starting seeds, so we're not utilizing any kind of commercial, no rock wools, no thing that we don't know about. There's rapid rooters can have formaldehyde in them. It seems like everything has a new problem with it when it comes to products, so that's why we just totally encourage closed loop systems, even for indoor growing. We're just showing you that you can do this, with a natural system. This is our...
And we were talking about fungi and how important fungi is for cannabis growth. Fungi is the only thing that really makes phosphorus bioavailable to the cannabis plant. So without it, it's not bioavailable. So you can put all the fungi that you want into your soil, but if you don't have something for the fungi to eat continuously, then it's not going to colonize. So in our soil mixes, we always work with hardwood chips and we work with hardwood sawdust. We think that it's absolutely imperative. If it's an indoor situation, then you can be utilizing all different sizes of wood that will give a shorter breakdown all the way to a longer breakdown. And now for people that are doing, outdoor gardening, being able to put like a lot of different branches and sticks in the bottom, which we're going to talk about even more coming up, involves a bioactivity of a prolonged colonization and eating. And then all of that fungi is eating the bacteria, and then the bacteria is making and eating all of the green material. So it's important, just like a compost pile, that we have to have our greens and our browns in every single soil mix. We don't have to have a soil mix that's like, exactly this and exactly that and exactly that. It's okay if everybody's soil is biodynamic and it's dynamic in the way that it's interacting with the plant and in the soil.
Sorry, with the wood chips, that's not a top dress, you're mixing it right in.
We're mixing it right in.
And if you're making a new bed, you can put them towards the bottom with rocks. If you're making a bed, like an indoor bed.
If you already have a bed,
yeah,
and basically, if you're just tilling, say like the top 3 inches of
Go
the
with
bed,
sawdust.
Yeah, you wouldn't get as much out of it in there. I would go probably like a few wood chips and probably a little bit of sawdust, but you can dig into your bed and plant wood chips in there. You could just use your hand, or you could dig channels out.
You don't want to make it in groups, right? Exactly.
No, you just kind of lighten it out, just kind of spread it out lightly. You don't want to overdo it, but if you're doing pockets of it, then you can get a lot out of that, and that'll create like a little world underneath there.
Nice.
And what about hardwood too? Why hardwood?
Because it's not acidic.
Yeah, easier to eat fungi. When you go to grow mushrooms or you go to do log spawn, like that one picture we had of green light, they were growing, the reishi underneath the cannabis plant, that's all on hardwood. Poplar, alder.
So you qualify those as hardwoods?
Okay, deciduous trees.
Yeah, most.
Leafy trees are a graduated version of a broadleaf plant, which we're growing. Fungi is easy to eat that, and you can use fir and pine in your gardens. It would just be more like 5-10% of it. It would be sweet if it was way more deciduous. So you're right to say that it's not hardwood. You had a question?
What about the age of the wood matter? Is that, like if you're gonna grow mushrooms and something, you would want to do it as a young, when they're pretty fresh, right?
Yeah, if you're specifically trying to grow a garden giant or a reishi, then you want to take a green tree that has been living and has not been cut down for more than 2 weeks, and so there's no other fungi in it, and you want to like make that, you know, a world there where it's going to expand through that. If you're just using bits of wood chips throughout there, you're just feeding soil-borne fungi in general. You're just attracting it and creating it. So yeah, so this is an example of our of a nursery that we created from that dirt that was outside. We've had that dirt now inside under LED and fluorescent lights for over 2 weeks now. There's no bugs flying around. There's worms in the soil. We're growing clover in there. We planted seeds directly in the dirt. Dirt, not soil. Just kidding.
I think we should keep going.
So one of the things that we did want to talk about is that we really feel like in order for this community to move forward and continue to be cannabis cultivators, which we think is incredibly imperative for the entire all of Canada, for this community to continue doing what we love, we feel like we would like to share with you that the most important thing is cutting costs. Now, if we're going into an LP or people are opening up these LPs, you really have to have in the back of your mind what other LPs are being opened up. An LP is going to be the licensed producers, and that's the new licenses that are coming around, and that's a whole other really big conversation. But some of the LPs are, coming in really big, and they're going to be undercutting everybody per gram. So that's why I was saying it's not about quantity, it's about quality. And the way to be able to grow a really good quality product and still stay in the market is to cut all of your costs. And we're going to really talk about this evening. So we're doing the beds there. And now we're moving. We feel like in the Kootenays you can grow the highest quality, most beautiful product. You're still staying in the market with all of the different strains that people are looking for, that consumers are looking for in a light depth greenhouse. This is the most wonderful place in the world really to grow flowers, but you have to be done by mid-September. And we all know what starts to happen to a lot of these cultivars that the market wants, but we can't really grow those cultivars long season. It's just not possible up here. So we've had tremendous amounts of success in light depth because you don't have to put a whole lot into it. And it doesn't have to be these huge light depth greenhouses that cost you a whole lot of money. We're really encouraging people when they step into this market, go in slow. Work on your quality, work on your soil. Put all of your money and all of your energy into your soil right now, and that's gonna really be helpful. This right here is a picture of a hugelkultur bed.
Okay. Oh yeah, no, there was a bunch of pictures of greenhouses which we didn't get into, but yeah. These are the light deprivation greenhouses, and this is what a person just. So when you go to get a light deprivation greenhouse, they're started by certain companies, and they come in and you have to get permits, and now all of a sudden you have to have a total pad, and now you have to have gravel, and now you have to have a pad of concrete, and now you're making lights, and now all of a sudden you have an indoor grow room and a greenhouse essentially, and you've detached yourself from the earth. So it's almost like you're trying to like use the sun, but you forgot that you were outside and you're in the earth, and it does not work. And people are buying $100,000 or $60,000 greenhouses and just failing. And so they go, and now they're cutting out the concrete out of the middle of the greenhouse, chipping through it, putting down some wood and some hay, and they have the wire, because the wire, there's gophers and there's different things. That's the only reason the wire's there. And then a drainage, down at the bottom so it can go out. And it's, it allows you to grow indoor quality in the greenhouse. It is really amazing. And if you can find a world where this makes sense to you, it's really pretty darn amazing. And if you can heat your beds, through a way that's not with propane, but a lot of times it is propane, then that's even better. So they're absolutely phenomenal, and connecting them to the earth speaks to the roots. It makes the cannabinoids better, and it makes the terpenes better. When we detach the roots from the earth and we keep them in pots, the pots dry out really fast. The microbiology doesn't continue to thrive, and it doesn't continue to excrete enzymes onto the roots, which allow the plants to produce a secondary metabolite. I mean, the resin on the plants is a secondary metabolite to the plant itself. It's an extra added piece of medicine on the plant, and the only way it can get complex is if the dirt is complex. So we might fake ourselves that we have a big plant, but we have actually an empty, big carrot. It's not actually full of beta carotene and all that stuff. So it's really important that we have diverse gardens. And we're going to go into field growing.
Well, I was just going to interject there. Cannabinoids. It's really important. We're not going for THC anymore. This sort of high THC strain is going to be a thing of the past because now we have the ability of testing. So a well-rounded cannabinoid, and it's requiring testing. So a well-rounded cannabinoid results are imperative for what makes you feel good. It's like, okay, we can grow all of these strains that we've all been passing around to each other, and unfortunately we've been passing them around to each other with broad mites, which is something we're all going to discuss here pretty soon. We haven't been to a garden yet in the Kootenays that doesn't have them.
Doesn't have to say the Kootenays.
Yeah, no,
It's
all
not a
over,
Kootenay
all
thing.
over. It's not a Kootenay thing, it's a cannabis thing, and I want to definitely say that. So we're realizing with testing and going back and forth on changing our soils and then testing those results, we're getting very rare cannabinoids that aren't being seen in regular cultivation practices. So now we're starting to realize, wow, this is a plant that may have the last laugh, because if these pharmaceutical companies and these people are going to want to extract these compounds, we're finding out that these compounds and these cannabinoids are not strain dependent. They're soil dependent. So it's not going to be that you're going to be able to get CBG or CBN or THCV from just a particular strain. You're going to get it from growing the plant well. It definitely will be her last laugh. The more that we treat this plant with reverence and upstanding spiritual thankfulness for everything that she has given us is when she's going to be giving back to us.
And since we're so involved with places all over that we're dealing with testing and all these things, extracts are really what open the mind of everyone. The reason why is extract and they condense everything. So there's tons of farms that have got their weed flagged because their extracts, they showed up with myclobutanol, for example, Eagle 20. If you think that you've corrected your problem by spraying Eagle 20 on your plant, that myclobutanol can live systemically in your plant for 7 to 8 cycles, 10 cycles. You can't get it out of your plant, and therefore you cannot sell your weed. If you want to sell weed in this market with testing, you have to know your inputs. It's not just a thing to say that maybe catches on, it's an absolute reality. Even pyrethroids has failed tests, and as testing becomes a reality, you're going to see more and more why we created the peer certification to begin with, because we can't always trust our inputs. And when we say that everything that we bring onto the property, we test it. If there's a soil coming onto the property, test it. If there's compost coming on the property, test it. If there's worm castings, test it, because it's absolutely going to go up into your plant. And so therefore we're saying, pay attention to what goes onto your plants, and you can't trust OMRI, and you can't trust the National Organic Standards, because pyrethroids was okay 3 or 4 years ago,
And you can't
and now it's
trust
not.
ash color.
And so, we're going beyond that. So these pictures are not just of our farm. They're of all of our peer certified farms. These are these different people that live in different parts of the world, mostly in the US and Canada. And this is Green Source Gardens down in Southern Oregon. And they took this piece of land. They have 80 acres. They have a piece of land that was pretty rocky underneath it. Like a normal farmer would go to this hillside and say, absolutely not, I'm out of here. There's no way this is going to work. But they said, I totally understand this. This is my heart and soul. This is everything I'm about. And I'm going to pull sticks out of the woods, and I'm going to dig it off on the side, and I have animals, and they're going to put the only thing that they bring onto this farm to produce their recreational cannabis for Oregon is hay. Hay to feed their animals. And they slowly break down and transform their field. And their field is absolutely phenomenal. And they've done amazing things. And awakening
This is two
people.
people. This
Is that
is
all
two
by
people.
hand?
Two
Absolutely.
people by hand.
No machinery. No machinery, just straight up heart and soul and faith and destiny. And, this is now Lady Sativa Farms in Mendocino. And all these people are seeing not only the market change, they're seeing their way of life change, and they're also seeing the tests come back. So it's actually good news, because the problems in the world can be solved by these kind of farming methods, indoors and out, that actually are the change to the world, and they are the change to our medicine. It's the better medicine. So we cannot compete in quantity with the whole thing. We only have left what we can do with the land and with our soil and with our changing of strains. We have to continue to make strains. The whole idea that we have the same strain forever and it's the one that everyone wants, it's not true.
Yeah, and I think that this is a really good example of how to save money. So they decided that they were going to come onto a farm, and this is a lot like our farm here in the Kootenays as well, is we don't bring anything onto our farm at all. We go and make that soil just down the road. We mix it up, and as much as we can encourage you all to utilize what your neighbors have, grow biodiversity, grow your own biomass. We are really moving away from the idea that comfrey is this. Comfrey we all know is great for our vegetable gardens. Well, I mean, cannabis loves it too, and the soil loves it. So we can be growing a lot of comfrey, and we can be growing alfalfa, and we can be growing burdock root. I don't know if you all knew, but burdock is a tremendous phosphorus, and it's 100% available, and it grows so well here, and it's something that we can grow in a really small area. And it's an invasive species, so it's like.
You guys can come to my place.
What we'd like to say is that they're paying people up in the north end of the lake over there to get rid of burdock. They're paying them all summer to do this. So they're
bring it to
bringing
our house.
truckloads of burdock to our house. It's the coolest thing in the world.
Just the root.
The whole
Yeah.
entire plant and the
The
root.
whole plant and the
The
root.
root is going to be where the potassium and everything really holds.
And what we have here in the Kootenays is this tremendous ability to grow biodiverse biomass. So what I'm traditionally studied is I'm a midwife. I'm also a naturopath is what I've been studied in, as well as an herbalist. So I just started to study all of these different herbal qualities and different plant qualities and what they all have, and then started cycling them into the cannabis. So we all know that cannabis really loves at the beginning time nitrogen, they need a lot of magnesium, they need a lot of calcium. What kind of plants do that? Well, I mean, we have chickweed, we have nettle, we have all of the leaves from the trees. All of these things are wonderful, fantastic nutrients that can be 100% bioavailable to the plant as soon as you either ferment it, break it down into a compost pile, or just keep layering on top of your beds. Josh and I have stopped doing even compost piles now, so we're working on 12-year-old beds, and we just put all of our biomaterial right on top of the beds.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, so for instance, burdock, you get the root, put it through your food processor,
Sure.
and just sprinkle it over top. And
Well,
it's
we're
fine.
going to go into some fermenting.
Okay,
So
cool.
really, if you
little
can
bit
do
of
that
all
with
totally
green
works.
material,
Okay.
you can do that with green material, and sprouts are also wonderful. We have this abundant ability to be able to grow sprouts and seeds, and when you take your sprouts in a big jar, you can grow a big jar of it, you can blend it up and just add this water to your plants where you're adding amino acids, you're giving all sorts of growth hormones. Every single mineral that could possibly be available in the soil is immediately available to your plants because you have the microbiology to break down those nutrients. So whatever you're adding into your soil, it's incredible. We have a cover crop, or we're watching people with really live soils, they're cutting down a 6-inch cover crop, just like with what you see outside, It's no different than for your cannabis cultivation. You cut it down, and within 4 or 5 days, they're like completely consumed by the soil.
And this is cannabis compost, straight leaf, tons of worms, little baby new worms in there. And this is another reason why, the more you use a system that's clean, the more you get out of the system. You don't have to, nothing's garbage. It always goes back into the system and enhances your profiles at all times.
Cannabis loves nothing more than herself. You've taken all of this time, energy, and money to feed the plant everything, and now that plant is uptaking it, and if you're wasting all of that material, you've wasted everything that you've put into that last cycle. If you can bring all of those leaf material, all of the stalks back into the soil, then you're not wasting anything. It's all going right back into the next soil. And that's where you're saving tremendous amounts of money, so that people are not so stressed out about this quantity thing. We can really focus on quality. We can focus on the quality of our soil. We can focus on the quality of our final product.
And biodiversity is the key to our success. This is a reishi that we grew out of a log that we inoculated underneath our ganja and the Buddha. And we use that mushroom with other polypores in our woods, meaning like red belt, Fomus fomentarius, Aplantum, and we mixed it in with olive oil and coconut oil and made a fusion of cannabis and polypores, which is really powerful to be able to grow your own medicine right underneath your ganja medicine. And it also acts as a mulch layer, and it keeps water, it's water retention, it's everything you want. And it breathes CO2, it's breathing CO2 right into the plant. Here's a light deprivation greenhouse. And the way that a lot of these operate is that they're sections, and they open in sections, and they're internal. And the light deprivation fabric is breathable, so you can keep the walls up on the outside. There's different greenhouses. So there's kind of two different light deprivation greenhouses. There's the sealed greenhouse that has like the sealed unit where you have giant dehumidifiers and giant fans on the outside and lights and everything. And they just really kind of treat it like an indoor greenhouse. And then there's other ones like Forever Flowering, which we've been working with for a really long time, and we love them, which have ridge vents in the top, so air never gets trapped in there, and the sides open up so you can have flow through air with blackout fabric. And these black pieces here are blackout walls. They're called blackout. Anyway, and the air goes in and out of, with no light coming through, and it's really phenomenal.
Okay, wait. So one thing that we're definitely finding out is that, when we get called into a lot of these farms, people that are having financial difficulties are the people that, are putting more and more finances into their product, their final product. That last greenhouse, can you go back, Josh, is a really perfect greenhouse of what you can have here in the Kootenays. It's totally low budget. You can pull your own tarps every night. It's cool enough here in the evenings, the sun starts going down, whereas it's not the same down in California. We have this great, wonderful ability to not even worry about all these end walls and these crazy closed systems. All we have to do is leave our sides open, our end walls open, and just close it with a blackout fabric. It's that easy. This is something that it might take that time and energy of waking up in the morning, every single morning.
Which is only positive.
Which is really only positive. I'm actually missing it. I can say that. You're sort of bitching about it when you're waking up early to do it, but now that, we're not doing it, we wish we were.
We're 100% on the mode of we love light deprivation. We love waking up in the morning and being there at night, because every day our plants should be seeing at least our shadow. If anything, they should be seeing our shadow. We should be walking and seeing every single plant every single day. And we love trimming. It's the best thing in the world. Like, there's always just like, whatever, in the trim scene, and if I still love you after trim scene, it's a good thing, and all that stuff. But, we really take that time to learn. It's an amazing opportunity, because we've been out in the world the whole time, and in the fall we come back and we're just like, okay, we get to look at our flower and smell it and make it the most beautiful, perfect thing in the world. And everything is an opportunity. And we must make it an opportunity, otherwise, it just becomes something that brings us down. And we really should just try and bring ourselves up, and we should try and create the most amazing thing in the world, because we have to be in it all the time. So if we're going to create something, it should be beautiful, it should feel good to be in, and we should want to show people it. This is a greenhouse that has a grid of air tubes going through it, which is known as a GAT system, which is a ground heat air exchange system. Transfer. They use earth exchangers to run loops of water through the ground that goes into a radiator and blows air in. They're geothermal greenhouses, and they're really, really awesome.
And now show Mark geothermal. So what we've done on our property is we've decided to use geothermal, but we've decided to dig it into the ground. And a lot of the soil in the Kootenays here has enough rock and enough ability to actually hold itself up. So we've dug huge big pits into the ground, and we're able to keep our constant temperature, because the thing that we really worry about in light depth scenarios, which a lot of people are worrying about as well in their indoor situations, is this fluctuation of temperature. When you have fluctuation of night and day temperatures, that degrades the leaf coating. And whenever there's a degradation of the leaf coating, then that means the cyanobacteria, which is a bacteria that keeps the leaf surface healthy, starts to be degraded, which makes a space for different types of fungi to come in, and then all of a sudden you've got leaf mildew. And you can notice, botrytis or leaf mildew, instantly. So that fluctuation of night and day is what really causes that. So if you can help by shading or whatever you can do to help that night and day temperature to be more equal is when you're going to have more ultimate health on your leaf structure. We need to keep moving.
Yeah, in the
This
12
is
years
an
that we've been on our
example.
property, we've bought nothing from the store. These plants are grown 100% from things we've made on our land. This dirt came from our land and that one other person's land that we showed you, which we've been cultivating that dirt on, and we bring it over to our property and we melt weeds and water it. Nothing else. We grow giant 15-foot tall monster plants, and then we can cover it with a tarp, and we can flower giant plants. It's the funnest thing in the world.
And this is a greenhouse that's sunk in.
Mark the outside of that greenhouse?
It's only
This
3
is-
feet above the ground.
You can see, like, at this point, you're like 15 feet up, looking into the ground. If you look on the left, that's like 10 feet up the ground, because it's like an angle, like on the hillside. So this is like 10 feet here, and this is like 6 feet. It's 40 feet wide. It's 70 feet long. It always ends up bigger than you think it is going to, because you start out at one thing and
Tell the
then
building inspector about that.
there's a reason why we live where we do. So, yeah, and so we're just building up on the back side. We're just like working it in, and we have a tea deck in the back, so all of our teas are elevated. Everything's gravity fed in, and it's phenomenal. Once again, the air just flows through. That fan is there, but we don't use it anymore.
It's broken, actually.
And the walls are always up. All summer long, the walls are up, never closed. In the springtime, they're closed for the vegetative time. In the summer, the walls are never closed. There's never any kind of stagnation ever happening in there. Any of the weeds around the sides and around the outside, always cut. Never let them grow too long because they get mildew on them. Anything that gets stagnated gets mildew on them. As soon as you cut them, they grow back fresh, they're clean. So you stamp them into the ground, get rid of them, keep it clean. Once again, nothing from the store. And
do you guys like that
Yes.
kind of greenhouse?
yeah, like
Yeah,
I
we
said,
light up
like
the whole
this
thing.
right here on this,
It's only 3
that
feet
downhill
above the
side
ground.
Yeah.
is like this tall off the ground.
And
Yeah.
you're using a fabric.
Yep.
We were using a blackout fabric, which we
Oh, go back to the other one.
Which is like a landscape
this
cloth,
is-
or-
No blackout fabric. There's actually you can buy a dark covering that's actually called blackout fabric from Northern Greenhouses. That's really awesome, and it's something that lasts a lot of seasons. So we really encourage people to not buy something cheap, because then that just creates more waste on
It
your
really makes
property.
a difference to make it black
Yeah.
on the inside. Like you can get like the sweet farm tarp, and we did that for
Oh,
a
yeah.
few years, a bunch of years, and we did it, and we were like shade depping, kind of. We were just kind of like, it's dark, kind of, right? Like it's like early.
Good enough,
And
right?
no, it's not good. Black makes flowers.
Yeah.
And if you do it in August, you're getting the heat at night. There's no differentiation in temperatures. Your buds build, get big, and you're done by September 1st, September 14th max, because you just never know what's going to happen in September here.
Do you guys pull off, like, once you, like, say you're flowering in August, will you pull off for those last 2 weeks and not matter because it's far enough along?
It's 100% strain dependent.
We have done it
We
before.
do, all of these plants are strains. None of our plants on our property are clones at the moment. We're total breeders. We had an Acapulco Gold that flowered all
Yeah, I
summer.
can- yeah.
It never finished.
Yeah, so the thing that you want to be careful is if you're working with certain different strains, especially ones that might be more land races, because once you start getting into all of these different strains, we start getting addicted to these strains, like, oh, let's make them better, let's get better at this. And the ones that we're trying to breed back into, the land races, are so sensitive. Any kind of a light problem within your greenhouse, you're going to be having problems. And that's like the sativas, the ones that grow really tall, they're very light sensitive.
Just so, like, just for like those last 2 weeks, I'm thinking it's like last 2 weeks of August, first week of September.
We've done it
Moon,
before.
star, and
Pull
sun
it off,
grown.
and
I
it's
feel
like-
you. I
Yeah.
mean, if there's things that you can like close
Wait,
it
so
early,
it
you can close.
trigger it though. You're saying, like,
Yeah.
if you pull that fabric
You can
off.
pull your tarp at like, it's hard here because it gets light really early, but it's not really hard bright light.
Yeah.
That's the thing that's different. Like when you're in Southern Oregon, California, it's like up and hot immediately. So
Let's
it's
talk
like,
about this.
oh, anyway.
Yeah,
Well,
they
anyway,
don't
this
do
is the
it.
Snodgrass farm down in Southern Oregon. Sierra's mom here, she's beautiful. These plants are absolutely amazing.
This
And
is all living soil. This is all 100% weed tea grown. These are also pure certified farm. They're not bringing in any inputs to this farm either. And they're
this is
averaging.
Jamaica. We're going to Jamaica in 2 weeks. This is our tea house at home. It's elevated. 8 feet off the ground.
Caleb helped us build it.
Yeah. Couldn't have done it without you, thank you. And we have a drum set in there now, which is really important to note because we play drums into the tea.
So if you put your tea stations above your greenhouses, then you're never even going to have to worry about, pumps and failing of pumps. It's just one less system that you have to worry about.
We
So
gravity
elevate
feed
it.
water into it and gravity feed it into our greenhouse.
Yeah.
And we create the teas by this. We take ferns, ganja leaf, we grow geraniums in and around the greenhouse because geraniums never get a bung on it ever.
Which is
Doesn't matter. We had the worst aphids ever this year, this summer. It was a horrible thing, but they did not ever touch the geraniums.
And we beat them out too. So that's a whole other conversation with the integrated pest and fungal management program. We think that it's very imperative to have a good integrated pest and fungal management program that's totally natural because like Josh said earlier, then all of your leaf material can go back in. So all of your males, those females love to eat those males. That's like their number one favorite food to do is like once you have all the males, you're recognizing them all. They're just like stoked that they're being cut down and being fed back to them. So that's awesome. This is a total, probably all males that we put into a tea.
This is a combination of comfrey, ganja, males, some mullein, some comfrey, and the peonies. There's some peonies leaves in there. This is not being brewed. This is 100% fermentation bubbles.
Yeah, so what happens is you want to make sure that you add plenty of inoculants that are going to break that down. One of the best inoculants that we know of that's an aggressive feeder is lactic acid bacteria. So you can get lactic acid bacteria, you can add it into your weed tea. We do about 3/4 of a barrel filled with weeds and then 1/4 filled up with water, but we fill the whole thing with water. We add our inoculants. Our inoculants would be our indigenous microorganisms that we talked about earlier because we want to be able to gather microorganisms that are going to be really aggressive, like a lot of different trichoderma species are in the woods. So we take a handful of that, we throw it in there. We might take a handful of our own compost because that has really good nutrients in it as well and also good colonizers and ones that will be good digesters.
This is making bokashi with the leaves, so the lactic acid bacteria can be used to inoculate bran, and then the bran is turned into a thing called bokashi, and bokashi is a Japanese term for fermented grains, and those fermented grains can be anything. They just have to be organic.
And it's another inoculant.
And we use our ice hash water extract leaf to make it as well. So we take the leaf out of the ice water extract and we put it into an apple press and we press it to get all the water out of it because too much water in fermentation makes it too anaerobic and throws it off. Anyway, you add that to some dry material and fresh leaf and it just eats through the ganja.
And if anything like where we're trying to roll through things, but we have a lot of PDFs on this. So anybody can reach out to us afterwards and say, hey, I didn't get all of that information. It's totally fine if you don't get all of this information.
An Instagram page and a Facebook and all that stuff.
And we've written up integrated pest and fungal management programs that are really easy to follow, that are 100% organic, that really are helping people's gardens. So we don't just continue sort of this horrible pathogenic problem that we have in the cannabis industry. Yeah.
So I won't bug you about I'll read the PDF on fermentation, but can you ferment maybe, I don't know if you addressed it on there, in an indoor environment, and would that create any issues? Gases, off-gassing, because fermenting creates gases too.
It creates beneficial gases.
It creates beneficial gases. So actually you're having a lot of beneficial gases from it, and it's great to do any kind of fermentation. So our fermentations, that was a perfect example. There's so many things that we can talk to you about.
I got nonstop examples.
Yeah, we got nonstop.
I just want to make sure it's safe.
And it's in every part of the country. It's in Canada. It doesn't matter where it is.
Yep,
We can do it.
and
Not
so
we.
these fermentations that stop right there though. These fermentations that we're talking about are something that you put in a vat and it only has to sit there for 7 days. The hotter the cycle is, say in August, it's going to go about 5 days. And then the most important thing is that you have anything in that fermentation. So then you have to take all of that water, you pour it into another big vat, and then you bubble it. Because we know that oxygen gets rid of pathogens and breeds beneficials.
And it activates things.
And it activates
your microbes. We want facultative microbes. We want facultative microbes, meaning a microbe that can grow in in an oxygen-rich environment or a depleted of oxygen, anaerobic or aerobic. Facultative ones can grow in both. We want those. We just want anything adaptogenic.
With a low battery.
Okay, so anyway, this is a field in Oregon. This is a totally bare field, never not been grown on. They used indigenous microorganisms and Korean natural farming methods to bring this to life.
And we came onto this farm and they were like, okay, you guys, we've got a lot of these strains that are really awesome strains. We're really worried about it in this valley. What do you think? I said, well, let's light dep it. And they said, what? This is like 2 acres. How are we gonna light dep 2 acres? What do you mean light dep it? So we didn't do hoop houses with this at all. We just worked with light depth material, and we used hops, big hops.
Hops poles,
Poles.
because hops grow all over the Willamette Valley.
And we utilized hops poles, which is the same thing that you can utilize with small deciduous trees as well. And we just lined up whole
And then
rope
there's
systems.
cables.
And then there's cables, and it took an hour for 6 people to light depth the entire tube.
They grew 3,000 pounds.
Yeah. And they were incredibly successful. And this is a first-year garden. This is a first-year garden.
You can look up chillers only. Chillers only.
Yeah,
They're
and
the ones
they
that
did it
get
with very, very minimal inputs and very minimal people.
Mike and Larry, 100% Korean natural farming. They've been to Hawaii multiple times, met with Master Cho, done the whole fermentation thing, do it, and they're really awesome. They're fun as hell. They actually.
And this is mostly fermented
Philadelphia.
they're mostly fermented from a lot of leaf material and stuff on their property. This is just an example of the Pure certification doesn't allow cloth pots. That's a really big, it's cloth pot life down in California and in Oregon right now in the rec market. I really am encouraging you all, if you're stepping into this LP market or, furthering wanting to grow cannabis for the legal market, to just do away with those pots.
Build your own beds,
Build
because
your
they're
own
made
beds.
of petroleum, they're made of plastic, and we know our roots are super vigorous. They break down things. Those pots just start breaking down.
And
Last thing
another-
you want is your roots. You're using the pots because they're aeroponic, so that the roots air prune themselves. That means they're air pruning and dying and living on plastic. It's not okay.
And the other thing that we're realizing is that cannabis is a highly social plant, and cannabinoids are much higher when plants are grown together. So separating them is really not doing any good for them at all. So we continue to separate out all of these potted plants, and we test them over and over again, and we're realizing the poor ones that are over in a pot all by themselves are not having very high cannabinoid or terpene counts, even though they have the same exact soil and they're the same exact plant.
Something that we're noticing in the cannabis industry, that the cannabis industry is moving faster than the plant can grow. This is a very dangerous position for us all to be in the cannabis industry. We all need to slow it down and think proper thoughts and have rightful way with this plant. The flowers that you are growing are being ingested by people, and those flowers are affecting the person's day and possibly even their entire life. It's totally imperative that we turn around this paradigm and we start having respect for this plant, so that the plant can go out and educate the masses, so that this world can be a better place.
Yeah, we're done. We don't have all the answers, but we're willing to work really hard and dedicate our whole lives.